Well, welcome back to another solo episode. I thought that I would take this as an opportunity to say thank you. I appreciate you taking some time out of your day to listen to what I have to say. It's coming into this topic. I don't want to hold back any progress that I can make, especially as I age. And I feel like women over 35 are doing themselves a massive disservice if they do put themselves into body competitions and figure competitions and do drastic diets that get them dieting in a way that leads to muscle loss without, like, you do not realize that when you are in a deficit, when you are eating less calories than maintenance, it is putting any progress on hold. And by progress, I mean your ability to build muscle. The balance of muscle protein breakdown to muscle protein synthesis, like building. If you're watching on screen, you have a graph of like kind of like an S curve. Muscle protein breakdowns down the bottom and muscle protein synthesis is at the top. Now, your ability to synthesize that muscle is much lower in a deficit to the point where you are just fighting to maintain. And eating protein alone is not enough for this. You need to train freaking hard. And this is where so many people go wrong. If your diet or your nutrition strategy is random, it's not intentional, or you aren't actually fueling your workouts properly, you're not prioritizing your sleep, your stress management, you decide to do a diet in a really stressful period of time, then that protein breakdown is going to increase and your ability to then synthesize a protein is going to reduce. The first thing I want to say is even in a moderate calorie deficit, muscle protein synthesis, as in your ability to repair muscle and even maintain muscle, is decreased. So everything that you can possibly be doing in a deficit is to be maintaining that muscle. Like I said, if your approach is haphazard, like either your training, your sleep, your recovery, you are going to most likely be losing muscle. And over time, this is why people say that they're gaining fat in a deficit, because when you lose muscle and when your training capacity and quality isn't there, and when your energy is lower as well, that is lowering your metabolism, your ability to see the changes that you want. You'll be losing muscle. Instead, that will be shuffling itself into fat. But so protein and getting in enough protein in a sitting is really important. If you're nibbling on food through the day and grazing and not having decent size serves of protein, at least 3 good serves of protein. And by a good serve of protein, I mean at least like 150 to 200 grams of chicken breast is equal to about 35 to 40 grams of protein. We want to have around 40 grams of protein 3 times a day at minimum. 3 to 5 serves is kind of typically where I would like to see you. Protein is what stimulates muscle protein synthesis. Food and eating in general elevates muscle protein synthesis. You need adequate protein to hit the threshold of repairing that muscle and building it back bigger to grow that muscle. In a deficit, muscle protein synthesis is less. If you're only having dinner with sufficient protein, even that most of the time, it's still not sufficient for what you need, especially over the age of 35. Even more so over the age of 40, 45, 40 grams at least in a serving, because your ability to absorb that protein is less. I want to share my screen with you for if you are watching. Seeing this graph will be very impactful for you. So what you'll see here is when you exercise, your muscle protein synthesis does go up. As you eat food and protein, it goes up as well. And then you eat food and protein, and then it spiked again. But the only reason that this one is much higher is because it is within the anabolic window of exercise, which means you have a heightened response to it. Now, this is in maintenance type of state. This isn't in a deficit. When you're in a deficit, it is a whole lot less. So what you'll see here is muscle protein synthesis, and then that's the breakdown and that's the synthesis. Every single time you have protein, it's bumped back up again. Now, the area between these graphs, as you'll see how there's less synthesis and much more breakdown. That is the rate, that is pretty much when you're in a deficit. It's kind of like when you're in a deficit as well, where your breakdown is a lot more than your synthesis. Just pushing your training really hard and making sure you optimize for those protein servings can do a hell of a lot of benefit for muscle building, which is bringing me into today's topic. A lot of people want to enhance a specific part of their body. They want to see changes in their legs in particular. Like the backs of the legs are one that most women are conscious about. One thing that I really want you to understand is spot training is a thing. What isn't a thing is fat loss, spotting fat loss, that sort of thing. So you're not going to crunch your way to a leaner toned stomach. You're not going to crunch your way to removing belly fat. And just because you do a million crunches and your belly is hurting now, and then the next day you're feeling DOMS in your stomach, it isn't meaning that all of a sudden it's going to be effective and you're going to see abs there. You train your abs the same way that you train any other body part if you want to grow them, but you're still not going to see those abs. There's body fat covering it. And that goes the same for every other muscle group. You're not going to see the lean definition you want if you have too much body fat on that area. However, you are never going to see definition on that body part ever if all you focus on is the body fat on that area. And that is typically where a lot of people get trapped, because they focus on that as the one and only thing. And those that are starting to see that they need to build muscle, they still fall into the same trap, because building muscle takes longer than even 4 times the length of losing fat. Weight loss is fast. Fat loss is a little slower. But building muscle, like, fuck, man, do you have time to listen to me tell you just how long it takes? It's like, no, seriously. Like, we really get caught up in ourselves because we feel the sensation of our body feeling fuller, our legs feeling chunkier. And I spoke about this in the last episode that I did solo, but the more that we can sit with that discomfort and regulate our emotions around that, the sooner we will get to the place that we want to be. Because if no matter how hard you try to lean out your legs, train them really hard, do a bunch of exercises, and you still don't see them that way, it's going to be really damn difficult for you to change that if you don't accept the fuller feeling and the fuller look. And this is kind of where a lot of women also say that they want to avoid training their quads. So they do hip thrusts and all these other things, but you need to train those muscles to grow to see it. As soon as you get to a place where you are, let's just say 3 years, not even 3 years, like 2 to 3 years into your journey of just focusing on going ham at building those areas, then when you put yourself into an intentional fat loss phase, you're going to see, like, then we can actually talk about having something to reveal. It's just that many people go about it wrong, and they might do that for a year and then put themselves into a diet, or even a couple of years, and they still don't see what they want. The approach wasn't right there to start with. They either didn't eat enough in that period of time because it was uncomfortable, or they didn't put the intention into their training, or the training programming in itself wasn't smart, because you can't go changing all your exercises all the time either. Like, you need to have a few exercises that stay the same over several months. I would even argue a year. Like, have those key exercises that are your meat and potatoes for a very long time. And if you ever do need to change them, just change it to a slightly different variation, because then you can actually be pushing it. And if you're always progressing on those lifts and seeing it go up all the time, then something is inherently wrong there, because progress doesn't happen that fast. And when you're actually fighting to see numbers go up, that's when you know that effectively training for results. And I know that I can get caught up in this as well. Like, there are some moves that I get really frustrated when I can't just get something out, like especially the leg press. I was able to add weight to my leg press consistently over like three months. But now I'm at a place where it's the same all the time. And I just need to make sure that I'm not cheating depth. If anything, I will try to get out a couple more reps because I know that I can rest pause. So I just go up and down in reps there, but I'm always going to the point where my legs are shaking and pretty much failing. And that's when you know that it's effective training, because effective progressive overload training doesn't mean that the numbers are going to be going up all the time. Progressive overload doesn't mean numbers going up. And that's why I hate the term, because just because the numbers don't go up for a couple of weeks or so doesn't mean you're not progressively overloading. That's why it should be called progressive stimulus. As long as you are training to that point of form failure every single time and giving your absolute best at your 100% effort, which can be the absolute terms of 80% one day because you're tired, you're fatigued, you didn't have a good night's sleep. On paper, it's 80%, but in your body, it was 100%. That is still effective training. You are still creating enough of a stimulus to see change. That was a really long introduction to physique enhancement, but most people dive into the fitness journeys with the wrong strategies, think that higher reps or doing HIIT and plyometrics and circuits or whatever it is the answer to leaner legs. Because again, our legs are usually the ones that we want to change the most. I remember when I was doing supersets with barbell squats and then pop squats over a bench, like all this dumb shit where I was just burning out my legs to annihilate the shit out of them. It worked until it didn't, and it was just plateau. It was working in my head because I was working really hard. 3 years later, I'm like, holy shit, like I actually haven't changed all that much. I kept pushing and being stubborn, thinking I could try it a different way, just try a little bit harder. And this is where my really important message comes to you in saying you cannot deficit your way to the physique that you want. We might think that it's going back into a diet every single time our legs feel like they've gained enough muscle so that we can lean them out, or dieting for every summer. But honestly, if you do this the right way, you wouldn't need to diet every summer because you'll be able to maintain a relatively lean physique. And by lean, I do not mean stage lean. I mean like a healthy lean physique that is maintainable for what you're willing to give up and what you're not willing to give up year round. 4 to 8 weeks away from quote unquote bikini season. Even though right now I'm pretty much just able to live it because I put in that work. However, if I wanted to then take my body to the next level, which I do, now I shifted my priorities again. I want to put myself back into a slight surplus very soon, but I'm very happy at the higher end of maintenance. So I wanted the X physique. I'd be smashing my legs out. I'd be doing all the reps, all the sets, thinking, okay, cool. This is going to allow me to stay lean while I build muscle. That isn't going to be the way there. So what does it actually take to see the shape that you want? It all comes down to how you are training, having the meat and potato exercises. But more than that, you need to be doing effective exercises. Doing a bunch of hip thrusts isn't going to cut it because you're not training your glutes in the length and range. Doing things like Bulgarian split squats, reverse lunges, staggered stance RDLs, walking lunges, leg press, squats, Romanian deadlifts, deadlift variation, where the bar stays in continual motion and keeps tension, doesn't drop off at the floor. Even glute hyperextensions, because you are still able to load it in the stretch position as well as in the squeeze position. Those lengthened ranges require you to get proper form and improve your mobility to get into those positions to target and load the muscle that you want to work. So getting your form right and building the foundations is key. And many of those moves, including your squat, require you to learn how to hinge, require you to learn how to brace. If you can put all of that effort that you usually put into dieting, stressing over the scale, the size of your pants, whatever it is, if you can make yourself see this as a challenge, like in university when you're studying for a degree, learning the skills, putting in the work, not rushing it, treating it like you're doing a 4-year degree. If you could treat your training like a 4-year bachelor degree or a 5 years master's degree, you have no idea just how far you can take your physique, your potential. Treat it like a master's degree. A coach is like your professor. They are there to guide you and where you need that extra help as well. And then you can go away and improve on those areas and keep leveling up. Or you could do self tests if you don't have a coach, figure out where you went wrong, know where to then look to improve those areas. Because more cardio and calorie cutting isn't it, and HIIT isn't it, and sprinting isn't it, and adding in more reps and sets and workouts because you're not seeing the changes isn't it either. It's just a whole heap of fatigue and burnout, and then wondering why you're not really seeing all that much. The best part about focusing on enhancing your back and focusing on building strong, developed, sculpted hamstrings and glutes is that strong glutes and strong hamstrings facilitate so much in life. They help keep your knees robust because a lot of women come to me with knee injuries, but they also have very undeveloped hamstrings and very weak glutes and core. It allows you to move more around the day and to burn a lot more calories throughout the day. When your body feels better, moves better, it trains better. And then that is the key to seeing your best results as well, because when you have more energy, it's easier to stay consistent. It's easier to enjoy the process. It's about training smarter, not harder, and intentional effort. Above all, it's that consistency. One of the big reasons why many people get stuck and don't see the results they want, the discomfort of feeling bulky is another reason why so many people get stuck. That and the scale. It's why there is so much power to focusing on what your body can do in the gym, on training smarter. I had a client come to me and she was doing a whole heap of workouts and she was really scared of slowing them down, saying that the slow lifting didn't work for her. When you say it works, what exactly are you seeing change? And it was more so the heart rate, the burning. It felt like it was keeping her lean. This is why it can get so confusing if you're not training in a way that is chasing strength, that is chasing proper form, proper intensity, learning how to train, building a strong base. It's going to be really hard to build a bigger engine. The stronger you can be, the more that you'll be able to lift with more reps and the more effective that training session becomes and you get more out of less. You even burn more calories doing the same amount of things. And this is the difference between cardio and training. When you do cardio, the better you get at cardio, the less calories you burn. You could be burning like 350 calories or something like that, and it could say 500. Let's just say it says you burnt 500, and it's going to keep saying you burnt 500 because you do the same amount. Your watch, I don't know what it'll do, but whatever they say, it's inaccurate, and you will be burning less and less the more adapted to cardio you get. We train to build muscle, we train to get stronger, and that is what creates the look that we want. And if we can get more out of less and burn more calories out of less, that is freaking powerful to staying lean over time and getting that physique enhancement that you want. But you can't calorie deficit your way there because those muscles that you want to see, that shape that you want to see, that sculpt you want to see is not dieted on. It is not dieted on. You need to spend a long period of time away from fat loss, and 6 months isn't enough. 1 year isn't enough if you want to be in that place I spoke about before. Fueling your body is essential for muscle growth because physique enhancement does not happen unless your training is its absolute best that it can be and you're training to your potential. You're pushing yourself. You're learning how to train. This is a skill. Don't expect to get this overnight, but if you keep trying to skip steps, you're not going to get to that place. And that's why you stay stuck, because it is not sustainable to have yourself in a place where your engine is so small that anything over 1,600 calories has you gain fat, or you feel so bloated and puffy and lethargic when you eat food. That's what this helps you do. You won't feel so lethargic all the time because your insulin sensitivity will be so much better. You won't have that insulin resistance. In fact, doing this approach reverses diabetes. It reverses insulin resistance. I already did a podcast on lean versus bulky legs. If you can understand that and not get freaked out by your legs after a training session or when you put on pants, and if you can throw the freaking scale out, it's going to do so much for you. And that is where most people get the bodies that they have. They chase performance. Most of the people that you're looking at, what are they doing? They have vibrant energy. Most of us want that fit, athletic body. Carbs are so crucial They are fundamental for your performance. Your body runs off them. It is the preferred energy source. And building that muscle is what then carries us forward, being more metabolic, being able to handle a lot more carbs, et cetera, et cetera. But that, like, literally, that is what builds shape. You can't want someone's results without doing what they did to get there. And what they show you isn't reality because it takes so much more time to get there. And most things are sold as weight loss challenges. Everything is sold to us as a weight loss challenge. It's the most sparkling, fantangling thing there is. Like, if you take a step back, do some inner work, do some journaling, do some like reality checking, it is not very sexy to sell this stuff. It really isn't very sexy to sell this stuff and working on your mindset around this stuff and making you have the patience and then telling you need to do something that is so uncomfortable. Just because you feel something doesn't make it accurate. And the more that you give into those emotions, the more that you lose, the more that you allow your logic to take over, the more that you pause, the more that you learn these emotional regulation skills, you're going to win and you're going to sculpt the body. But it all comes down to training smarter, training harder, having a program, filming your lifts, watching them over, having someone critique them, someone to program you properly, and having someone get you really freaking excited about your training. And I realized that when I was at my best and my strongest, and when I felt most proud of my body and my progress was when I was training to be strong. And that's when I felt like I had the biggest ass as well, when I was training to be strong. Goals shift, the way you progress shifts. I don't lift near as much as I did then, but my physique is so much better. I'm leaner. I have a lot more muscle at pretty much the same body weight almost. Like, that has a lot to say for this. Most of us are focusing on the wrong metrics of progress. We're focusing on the wrong things and we're thinking everything happens linearly. It's not. You just need to put north in your compass and stop trying to grab the most detailed maps, because things change just like that map from Hogwarts. It's always going to be changing depending on where we are. So your journey is a Hogwarts map. Play the long game, reframe discomfort, reframe your meaning of progress, and get support. Stop wasting time on methods that don't work, because you deserve this. You really do. You owe it to yourself. With all the work that you put in and the fact that you're listening to this, you deserve this. Give yourself time, get a coach, trust the work that you're putting in. And if you don't trust the work you're putting in, then revise what exactly it is you're doing and actually hold the promises that you make to yourself and give it that much more effort, and you'll start training to enhance. Start training to enhance. Stop training to shrink, and you will see your physique transform. Love you all, and you'll hear me on the next podcast.